Hello everyone, and welcome to my screencast recording of my lit review paper. The title of my paper is, What is the Impact of Information and Communication Technology, or ICT, on Program for International Student Assessment, or Paisa, scores? The Program for International Student Assessment is a worldwide comparative study of the academic achievement of 15-year-old students in math, science, and reading. It was developed by the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, or Oecd, in 1997. It was intended primarily to study OECD countries, but it has not been limited to those countries. Other countries agreed to participate voluntarily. The first assessment was conducted in 2000. Additional assessments have been carried out every 3 years. The most recent assessment, for which complete data are available at the time of this writing, was for the year 2015. The time period covered by Paisa to date has coincided with a period in which information and communication technology was being introduced everywhere, but on a variety of timetables and in many different ways. Opinions varied widely, both between countries and within each country, about the impact of ICT on academic achievement. Some scholars felt that computer use, for example, was helpful to student achievement. Others felt that it was harmful, and still others believed that it had no measurable impact. The United States was a leader in educational use of ICT, having introduced it early and aggressively. Yet American students have not done well in comparative Paisa scores. Their scores are well below those of many other countries in all three subject areas, but are especially low in math. These considerations have given rise to the questions covered in this literature review. Why are U.S. students achieving less academically than their counterparts in other countries? Where does ICT use fit into this picture, and are all the answers to these questions the same in all countries and for all forms of ICT, or are there different factors interacting in complex ways? In the Paisa results for 2015, U.S. student scores ranked in 24th place among the 72 participating countries in science and 25th in reading. Those scores are slightly above the OECD average, but most alarmingly, U.S. student scores ranked 41st in math, placing well below the OECD average. I'm now teaching students in the USA, a rich first world country on the cutting edge of education technology development. I have some experience teaching students in Uganda, a poor third world country which is far behind the first world in the race toward economic and technological development. In that experience, I have been occasionally surprised by anecdotal cases of Ugandan students performing better than I might have expected of them, given their disadvantages and their low-tech, low-budget schools. Even though Uganda is not among the countries participating in Paisa, this experience has piqued my curiosity about the following 3 research questions, which are the subject of this literature review. Number 1, why does the USA lag behind other OECD countries in Paisa scores? To what extent, if any, does ICT use impact that question? Number 2, are all forms of ICT use similar in their impact, or are some forms more helpful or harmful than others? And number 3, what factors might explain the wide range of results between positive, negative, or neutral correlations between ICT use and academic achievement? Methods. I used databases in the JMU library and the Google Scholar. I searched for the following terms: Paisa scores, ICT, OECD, education, technology, computers, internet, and academic achievement. I used a date range from 2008 to 2018. I reviewed 36 papers and ended up using and citing 16 of those. First question, why does the USA lag behind other OECD countries in Paisa scores? The problem exists at all socioeconomic levels. It's not just a problem for poor kids, and it makes no sense to compare disadvantaged students in one country to advantaged students in another, as some have done. Students' perceptions. Anecdotally, foreign students who have come to the USA and compared American schools to schools in their own countries have been heard to offer remarks like these. American students don't do homework. American schools do not emphasize STEM subjects, meaning science, technology, engineering, and math, preferring instead the arts and humanities. American schools do not teach skills that employers are looking for. Underpaid and overworked teachers. One writer said, American teachers today work harder under much more challenging conditions than teachers elsewhere in the industrialized world. They also receive less useful feedback, receive less helpful professional development, and have less time to collaborate to improve their work. Not surprisingly, 2/3 feel their profession is not valued by society, an indicator that the OECD finds is ultimately related to student achievement. Politics. Valerie Strauss in the Washington Post asserted the following. The Bush-era policy called No Child Left Behind has severely damaged education quality and equity, with its narrowing and limiting effects falling most severely on the poor. No Child Left Behind failed to significantly increase academic performance and narrow achievement gaps. Also, attempts to fix No Child Left Behind, such as the Obama-era policy's Common Core of 2009 and the ESSA Act of 2015, have also failed and will extend a lost decade for U.S. schools. Are all forms of ICT use similar in their impact, or are some forms more helpful or harmful than others? At home or at school, for work or for play, one paper studied the effects of internet use and video game playing on academic performance, and also the roles of gender, race, and income in these relationships. In general, the data show little impact of internet use and a positive impact of gaming. However, perceptions about the impacts are mixed. Most youth believe that using the internet helps them to do better in school, although their parents did not share this perception. Parents perceived no benefits of home internet use access to the students' school performance. What about internet versus games? Another paper found that gaming is the only activity for which a positive coefficient between the Paisa test scores and intensity of use is consistently found. This positive impact of gaming was not expected by the researchers. For other activities, the measures of intensity tend to be negatively correlated with students' Paisa test score, with some exceptions. This negative effect is particularly strong for the creation of content and knowledge and problem-solving activities, which are closely related to the use of ICT in the school curriculum. The data show that after controlling for observable characteristics, greater educational use of computers does not have a positive effect on standardized test scores. The only positive impacts of ICT found in this study were the ones related to gaming. What factors might explain the wide range of results between positive, negative, or neutral correlations between ICT use and academic achievement? Well, there is a passionate argument about that question. Early in the process of introducing ICT to American schools, Todd Oppenheimer Oppenheimer stirred up a hornet's nest of controversy with his article, The Computer Delusion, in The Atlantic in 1997. And I looked at this, even though it's outside my date range, because of its importance. Oppenheimer lamented the decision of many schools to cut spending on what he considered important and effective investments in order to fit computers into their budgets. He considered such decisions to be an example of a pattern of having high hopes for a new technology, which ended up being disappointed. Over the next 20 years, Oppenheimer's view attracted both enthusiastic support and intense criticism. Computers can help if you use them well. Another paper observed, it seems that someone always wants to know if technology makes a difference. They proposed to address that issue through 4 strategic questions. First, do we think of technology as a solution in itself or as a means to an end? Adding technology without altering pedagogy is not a solution. 2, do we assume that using technology is an either-or proposition? It is all too easy to assume that using one technology replaces another, but in many instances, technologies are blended rather than substituted. 3, have we identified those processes and activities we want to improve and looked at how technology can facilitate those actions? 4, are we doing the same things with technology, or are we taking advantage of the unique capabilities of technology and redesigning our activities? Quality matters, another paper, pointed toward potential problems arising from early overuse of ICT content of low quality. High quantity ICT correlates negatively, but high quality positively to academic achievement. In large-scale international assessments like Paisa and others, research has struggled to find positive associations between the frequency of educational technology use in schools and student achievement, while computer use at home showed a tendency for positive correlations with test scores. Computer use in schools did not, except when the school computers and the content taught by them were perceived as being of very high quality. It seems reasonable to conclude that it might be quality instead of quantity of educational technology use that matters. Change and keep changing. In a book called Remaking the American University, Market Smart and Mission Centered, the authors wrote, there is nothing so cold as yesterday's invincible revolution. 5 years ago, e-learning was everybody's buzz, the promise of $1 trillion market wrapped around the prospects of anytime, anywhere learning. All of that is now gone, replaced by a pervading sense of disappointment. Apparently, the rush to e-learning produced more capacity than was needed. The boom-bust cycle in e-learning stemmed from a failure to deal with the process of innovation itself. Excessive enthusiasm produced too many new ventures, pushing too many untested products, which turned out not to deliver as much value as promised. Deep Complexity, another paper, focused on the limitations to research imposed by complexity, including the complex motivation of researchers. It may be the case that the subject of educational effectiveness is so complex, like meteorology, that it will permanently defy both complete analysis and long-term prediction. Even if there are underlying laws that influence learning, the complexity inherent in these laws may defy our ability to perceive, much less control them. 3 decades ago, Cronbach pointed out that quantitative comparative research of the kind most often conducted in instructional technology may be doomed to failure because we simply cannot pile up generalizations fast enough to adapt our instructional treatments to the myriad of variables inherent in any given instance of instruction. Is distance ed worth it? A 2011 paper looked at distance ed programs in the Virginia Community College system where I am currently employed as a teacher. Although the no significant difference phenomenon between face-to-face and distance ed described by Russell continues to dominate the literature, most studies in this area focus on university students who are academically well prepared. Examining the overlapping causation factors for student withdrawal, these researchers observed that students with lower placement scores were more likely to withdraw from the online section, while students with higher scores were more likely to withdraw from the face-to-face section, leaving the online section with better prepared students, and that, of course, has the potential of skewing the results. Nevertheless, their analyses showed clear examples of a negative impact of online learning on course retention and course performance in both math and English. They concluded that designing and teaching high-quality online courses with sufficient student supports may be more difficult than doing so with face-to-face courses. Conclusions. Perhaps the most succinct conclusion available is the one offered by Apple Computer's Steve Jobs after he donated millions of computers to schools all over the world and watched the results. He said, "What's wrong with education cannot be fixed with technology." The evidence so far seems to confirm the notion that ICT is primarily a delivery method, and the results are determined more by what is delivered than by the method of delivery. For the deficiencies that exist in American education, technology cannot fairly be blamed, nor can it be counted on to provide a magic bullet solution. However, if well used, technology could be an important part of a solution set. The widely varying differences between research findings seem to be rooted in the deep, multi-factor complexity of the questions being considered. Hopefully, we will be able to find ways to use our technology to understand how it may best be used and how to understand our use of it. Thanks for watching.